Hey there, it's Kellie Hart Davis of Fit Thrive Workouts. I'm also the co-author of Strong Curves, and I'm here today to go over some common mistakes that I see in the glute bridge so you can bridge better. We're going to come to the floor, to our mat. So the bridge is often done from the floor, whereas a hip thrust is done from a bench. The first common mistake that I see is that the feet are placed too close to the back of the legs. So you always want to make sure that you're at about 90 degrees when you come up. So you're going to create that 90-degree angle from your shin to your knee, up your femur. Because what happens when your feet get too close is you tend to really push up through the hips, and that's going to cause some lumbar compression here, which can later on lead to issues with the SI joint and piriformis syndrome. And it's also not as conducive to contract the glutes hard from this position. So you're just going to walk your feet out just a bit. So you're going to be about 1.5 foot's length from heel to glute here, and that's going to give you that nice 90-degree shin angle, and that's going to give you the nice 90-degree knee angle so that you can really hone in on firing those glutes without pressing up through the hips too much and compressing the low spine. Another common mistake that I see is that as you come up, you get rib flare. So a great way to prevent that is when you're in your setup, notice if you have a gap in your back. Many of us are in that natural anterior pelvic tilt, especially if we're moms and we've had a pregnancy or we're carrying a baby on our hip all the time. So all you're going to do is push your spine into the floor, and this is going to allow you to start in that nice neutral spine position. So as you're coming up, you're not going to have those flared ribs because you're in that neutral spine position. Now there's a difference between posteriorly tilting, so we're not thrusting our hips up toward our ribs, we're just pushing the back into the floor. As we're coming up, we're extending through the hips, having that nice straight line all the way down from shoulders to knees. Another common mistake is that we arch as we come up. So if you're pushing too far and you're getting the arch throughout your back, that's going to cause the ribs to flare. You're going to get a lot of tension in the back. I can already feel my my spinal erectors firing really, really hard, and I'm not getting a lot of tension in my glutes. This is also really bad if you do have a tendency to have diastasis recti with that abdominal separation. So as you're coming up, make sure that you keep your lower core engaged, not firing really hard, so you're not bracing for a punch, but you want to keep that lower core engaged, so when you come up, you're keeping that pelvis nice and neutral. That lower core engagement is going to help maintain that neutral pelvis. And finally, another common mistake I see is using the arms as drivers. This is often something we see in yoga, which is fine, but when we're doing a glute bridge and we're really working on that hip extension, going into that hip hinge and building our glutes, we don't want to have the arm component, because what happens is we're driving our arms into the floor, and then we're getting a lot of tension in our upper traps, and we're really not focusing too much on what's going on with our glutes. We're getting that overextension, our hips are extending above our knees, and we really don't want that. So I recommend, with all the other steps, we're going to keep our arms up off the floor. You can hold them at your sides. You can hold them up overhead, making sure the backs of your shoulders are still flush with the floor, but don't allow those arms to touch the floor. So as you come up, you're really focusing on that hip extension and working through.